What's up, guys? Welcome back to Task Force Off-Road. Me and Necto are here, and we have all three of the jet skis that currently belong to the channel right in front of us right now. Before we get into that, I want to say please like the video if you like the idea behind this content. You've already seen the style, and hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Join the task force. I really appreciate that. It helps the channel out a lot, and I think I already said this, but like the video, hit the bell notification and if you want to get notified about the videos. And now that we're going to get into it, okay guys, so the plan behind this video is to talk about what you should do and what you should look for when you're planning to pick up your first project PWC. And now I know my 2019 GTX isn't necessarily a project ski. However, it is definitely a route to go when you're planning on buying something to get out in the water, and I want to just include that in there because it's something to think about when you're running the numbers on all these things to see what makes more sense for you and what you get out of it. Alright, so first I kind of want to go into it and talk about how much each of these skis cost. So, this guy, we already had the trailer because Necto bought the trailer for about $100 when he bought a John boat to go fishing on. So the trailer was, we'll call that $100. The jet ski itself cost us $50, and then we got another parts jet ski that's behind that little fence for another $50. With that being said, I believe we had to put about $400 worth of parts into this ski, not to mention all of our labor, because it needed an entire engine rebuild, a new crankshaft, and it realistically still could use some odds and ends to make it pretty, but that was just to get her running as well as a carburetor rebuild. It's still not perfect. It needs a little bit of carb tuning, but she turns over like a dream just about every single time we want it to turn over. The 97 GTX, now this one was way more expensive, but in my eyes, I think it was still a good deal, and it was still a cheap jet ski by all means and associations of the word. So the trailer and the ski were $800 total. So I break that in half and half because realistically, if you're gonna buy a trailer right now, you can get a trailer for anywhere from $500 to $700 for a single ski trailer. So I think $400 for a trailer, $400 for a ski is a very reasonable and cheap cost to consider. Now with that being said, this ski was in a no start, no beep condition, which means we had no signs of life out of this jet ski. While I was negotiating with the seller, the only thing I did want to ensure was that the crankshaft spun and the motor wasn't seized up. Because if the motor was seized up, I wasn't going to pay that much money for the ski because I don't think it would have been worth it in the long run. We would have had to put too much money into it than it's worth. But I got confirmation that the motor turned over. I went and I felt that for myself, so I was much more comfortable spending that much money on this ski. So with that being said, we had to deal with a bunch of electrical issues, and we're going to go into the issues that each ski provided a little bit later in this video. So next we have my 2019 Seadoo GTX, and this is obviously the most expensive of the three of these jet skis. So with that being said, this ski was about $14,000 from the dealership. The trailer was another $1,000 as well, so altogether that was $15,000. So obviously there is a large price difference between all of these skis. Back to the 97 Project GTX, this thing probably cost us another, I would say, $300 in miscellaneous parts to get running, which realistically, a lot of that stuff, knowing what we know now, we did not need to buy. However, it was still purchased, so I'm including that in the price to get it running. All right, so now I want to go to inspection of the hull when you're first looking for a project ski. Now this hull is a great example because there's nothing big wrong with it. So just you do a quick peek around. You want to look for any cracks, any soft spots, anything of the sort that's going to really stick out. Obviously, when you're looking at older skis, the hulls aren't going to be pretty. They're not going to be as pristine. The gel coat's not going to be perfect. They're going to come with scratches and nicks, and that stuff's fine. You really want to make sure there's just no gaping holes or anything in the hull that's going to cause you issues further down the line. And if you do see a crack that's kind of, sort of, you know, sketchy and hairy, or maybe it's just through the gel coat, you can easily fix that with some marine grade fiberglass filler, and then throw another little clear coat or another coat of gel coat after that, and just sand it all, make it nice and smooth. That way you're smooth on the water. Now a good example of that kind of patch is right here, where we fiberglass this in. This was pretty much completely ripped off. So we put some fiberglass filler on it. We still need to do a lot of sanding to clean this up and get it ready to sell and then repaint it. However, this was completely off right here, and now it's extremely sturdy and it's not going anywhere. So some of this stuff, like I said, it can be an easy fix, but it's something to think about as you're purchasing the ski and things you're thinking about the price. Where I paid $50 for this thing, I wasn't necessarily concerned if there was a little crack in the hull here. Whereas paying $800 for this thing, I might be a little bit more concerned if there's a crack in the hull. Now, when you're going into these things, think about what your skill set is and what's going to be a challenge for you. And if you want a challenge out of this, where me and Necto have been planning these things out, we want to challenge ourselves. We want to build up our skills when it comes to being a mechanic and having fun with these things. Where with our 91 here, we had absolutely no experience whatsoever rebuilding a motor, so we went into this completely blind. And that was part of the fun of the project. We just learned along the way, and as you guys have seen with that video, it worked out very well, and the ski runs great. It does very well. Like I said, it needs some carb work, but nothing too big of a deal there. And we learned a lot. Now with this ski, it was all electrical issues, and due to that fact, this took, I'd say, about 3 months for us to finally figure it out. If we're talking about days of actual working, I'd say about 3 days of actual work if you take all the hours packed into one day, and that's not counting all the research we did. And I'll have Necto talk about the research that he did, because he did most of the research on the electrical behalf. And even though when it came to solving the actual issue, I still had my buddy Corey come help us out, and we kind of stumbled upon it in a fluke. Now, Corey knew how to trace the power through with the test light much better than Necto or I did, and that's really what helped us out and got us to solve the problem in the first place and kind of figure out where we needed to be looking, because I didn't necessarily know how to do that, because electrical is not my skill set.
Forums are a great help. There's a ton of information on there. I feel like that's like our first go-to is like look it up online. Like obviously we don't know everything, but I mean if you have some common sense and you're willing to do the research, you can really figure out how to do these things on your own. We came into these projects, I mean, me personally, barely knowing anything, especially about jet skis. So it's fun. It's definitely a lot of work, but it's worth it in the end.
And as with this ski, obviously you're paying for peace of mind. This thing, it's 4-stroke. This thing's pretty much just going to turn over every single time. It's easier to maintain. It's cheap to maintain. You don't have to deal with a carburetor, and you pretty much put gas in it and go. The winterization process is much less invasive, and they're just that much more reliable. As well as with the newer skis, you can put speakers on them. I have heated grips in this thing. I have a depth finder on it. It's much more technologically advanced, and that obviously includes with the higher price tag of the ski itself. With that being said though, on these other skis, not so sure about the 91, but there is a company out there that I've been in talks with. It is PWC brackets, and you can put a speaker on this jet ski and mount it up, and it'll be nice and clean. So keep that in mind as well when you're trying to figure this out and get on the water. Now another thing you should be looking at is you should be looking at the condition of the jet pump here, and you can kind of do a visual inspection inside and see if there's any debris around the impella, around the wear ring, anything that could cause an issue with your jet pump when it comes to thrust. Not necessarily a deal breaker, but something to know about when you're going into it. That way you know maybe you need to replace a wear ring, maybe you need to replace your props, maybe you need an entirely new jet pump, and that's why you'd have a part ski as well for it. Another thing that's still wrong with this ski is that we have a broken intake grate. So what the intake grate does is it flows the water through, and if Necto wants to peer the camera down here, you can see that it's missing its fins. So what that does is it flows the water through and helps block it from debris, sticks, branches, anything that's in the water that can get up into your props and mess them up. So that's why it's very crucial to have those fins there and have the correct fins there. That way it's flowing water through properly, because a lot of power modifications for these skis is simply changing the intake grate out for a more aggressive styled intake grate. You also want to make sure you're looking at your trailer and inspecting your trailer, making sure your trailer is safe. Do the tires have air in them? Do they hold air? Did the guy just put air in it that day? Do you need new wheel bearings? Are the hubs good? Are the tires themselves good? Or do you need new tires? Kind of some things to think about. Is it just safe enough to barely get it home and then keep on going from there? All of this stuff is stuff to think about while you're planning your project. And I think the biggest thing is knowing what your skills are, and if you're down for a challenge, or if you want it to be just an easy, quick project that you do over the winter, and you can have some fun in the summertime. So with that being said, guys, I highly recommend, if you want to get into the hobby of riding a PWC, go out and buy a cheap one or go for the expensive one. Either way, you're going to love getting out in the water. Like Necto was saying, do the legwork, do the research. Between Seadoo's shop manuals that you can get online for free and hunting down on forums and seeing people who had similar issues as we are.
YouTube videos.
Videos like the ones
here.
we make, like especially leave a comment in the comment section if someone on YouTube helped you. I know people helped me on YouTube. Nick Grill, if you still watch the channel, man, dude, you pretty much made an Instagram to help us with this ski in particular. Like, that was such a huge help. The whole community out here is fantastic, and everyone's looking to help each other. So if you want to get into it, there's plenty of YouTube channels out there showing you how to do this stuff. And even if you get a snippet of what the inside of one ski looks like versus another one, you can kind of see what's different with yours and a way to fix it. So I love hunting down the cheap things and finding a way to fix them. I think it's a huge, huge successful and like pride moment whenever you do get to fix that. So with that being said, I think the next step for Necto and I is to try and find a cheap 4-stroke. That way we get out of the carbureted stuff and get something a little bit more reliable. But there's going to be plenty more videos with this ski, riding it out in the water, as well as just having some fun with these things. We've been toying around with the idea of getting some wetsuits and really getting after it this year. So stay tuned for that, guys. If you liked the video, leave a comment in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next time.
Yeah, it's that first day of first grade. That cute girl, your third date. That backpack, that snapback you've had since the 3rd grade. The first time you got laid, the worst time you got played. It hurt, but you're okay. You learned from your mistakes. Your friends back in high school, we thought we were so cool. We'd steal Jack, my dad's stash, and drink the whole night through.